Okay, we are live. That took a while. Some days the connection is not the best. Um, let's see if this is working. Yeah, it looks like we are online and there are people watching already. Wonderful. Thank you, YouTube, for making life difficult. That seems to be what you're doing best. Yeah. So I woke up this morning and I thought I would do a live stream that nobody cares about. So should museums be arenas for entertainment? Should their main goal be to entertain people? I think the answer is no, but we will look more into that. I find it interesting because um, I was recently in or at Birka. It's an island in Sweden. It's a museum and obviously the site of a Viking village or town back in the old days. And someone said that these days, if you run a museum, even though it's it's a state that kind of owns the museum. It's not a private museum. But you have to make money coming in, and to do that, you host festivals and stuff like that. You know, and there are some problems associated with that. So, yeah, I'll just say hello here, Jake and Woodsman Bushcraft, Daniel, and the Midwest Western Viking, like a gladiator arena. Absolutely not. Well, the word arena, by the way, the only word I could think of when I wrote the title for this live stream. Mrs. Bungle from Scotland, hi there, and Laura. Leon. Oh, YouTube, Leon, they unsubscribed you for the fourth time. But thank you for coming back. And thank you to YouTube. I think being on YouTube, the way you are doing things, YouTube, you build character because you make life difficult for us creators. Now with AI and all of that, yeah, you're building character, you know. Thank you for that, Leon and GB. Hi there. Nero, good to see you all. So if you have a museum, I believe that should be a window into the past. It is also a place where you do research, or rather a crossroads for the people doing research. And that's quite important, actually. I'm saying I'm not doing the real research. I mean, the people digging in the ground are the ones doing the research. I'm just reading about it. But hi there, Judy. So the museum it's where these people work. Also, they display the past to the general public so that the general public can come there and look at artifacts from the past and so on. And through doing that, we learn about the past. It is a search for the truth. We want to learn where we come from, what brought us here to our place today. We want to learn about patterns, or we should try to learn about patterns. I always say history repeats itself or it rhymes, and if we look back at history, we can clearly see that. Without history, we don't have any roots. Without a good connection to our history and our past and our ancestry, we are easily manipulated by the powers that be. So museums have such an important mission in modern society. And I think that if it was up to the archaeologists, the historians, and the people working at the museums, the conservationists, they wouldn't be hosting festivals. That's my guess. I might be wrong. There might be exceptions, but what I'm trying to get to here is that these festivals seem to have kind of become disconnected from what the museum is about. And I will give you some examples of that. Now, across the fjord here, oh wow, Nero, that is amazing. Thank you. You are again supporting this channel immensely. And I can't thank you enough. Keeps me going. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. Yes. Across the fjord here, there's a Viking museum. We are kind of focused on the Viking Age here in Norway. Actually, maybe I was going to say too much, but it's not too much. But it's like sometimes it kind of makes people think that that's all there is. But of course, there was a Bronze Age and migration period, and lots of interesting stuff happened after the Viking Age and so on. But when you go across the fjord here now, I won't do that, because now the museum there, they are hosting Midgardsblot, which is an internationally well-known festival. They have a Viking reenactment camp there, and it's a concert arena, folk music, metal music, and stuff like that. It is a place where you couldn't pay me enough. You could not pay me enough to go there. There is not enough money in Norway to make me go there during Midgardsblot. And the reason is that it's a place, from what I've seen, it has, first of all, nothing to do with the Viking Age. And I'll explain why I'm saying that. It's a place for the extremely extrovert. And of course, it's very noisy. I don't like noisy places. So why is it disconnected? Why from the Viking Age? Why is Midgardsblot? Why am I saying that it has nothing to do with the Viking Age? Well, they have the images of the Norse gods and all of that, and they are doing the blot. So they are pouring horse blood on each other and stuff like that, smearing themselves in horse blood. I find that disturbing in itself, to be honest with you. And if we look back at the blot, that tradition, it was not like that. people need to understand something about the Viking Age here. And I'm talking about the pre-Christian Viking Age. People often forget that Christianity was a part of the Viking culture too. And I'll explain. But the blot, which is the ritual performed by people in pre-Christian times, during the Viking Age and before that, it followed quite strict, what's the word? A quite strict. There was a way to do it, and there is nothing. Well, I would put it this way: everything I know about the Viking Age tells me that people during the blot, they did not run around, jump around, act crazy, because everything about the Viking Age was rigid, like not moving. What I mean is that it followed a procedure. So at the lowest level, the blot was performed in the home by the father in the family. Now, people these days, they don't like to hear this, but the Viking culture was extremely, they talk about the patriarchy. It was patriarchal, is that the word? Patriarchal society. So it was like at the lowest level, it was the father in the house that performed the blot. They had patriarchy. Yes, they had probably a corner, something like that, in their house, where they had some smaller god poles, symbols, things like that. And they would make small offerings, things like a glass of beer, and then the community would have blots that involved very often horse meat, eating horse meat, not smearing yourself with horse blood, eating horse meat, offering horse meat, but also offering wine from the south and mead, of course. And you had the Volve, which was a female figure that did all of the crazy stuff, like the swirling around and falling into a trance and stuff like that. It was not a society where people were left to do as they wanted to. Even the partying was probably very strict, followed strict rules. So we believe that in many cases, or most cases, you would drink sitting down along the bench that went along the wall, and they were built in such a fashion that when you got really, really drunk, you just fell back and you fell asleep. So this extremely extrovert behavior that you will see at Midgardsblot now during these days, it has nothing to do with the Viking Age, in my opinion. Nothing. So we have all these multi-pierced people jumping up and down, smearing themselves in horse blood. And you know what? The problem is that people look at that. Some people think, that's crazy. Those people are crazy. I don't like the Vikings. I don't like the Viking Age. Thank God we're done with all of that craziness. That's what people think when they see that. And they are thinking, I don't want anything to do with that. And some people get fascinated. Oh, and they think, was it like that during the Viking Age? Oh, that's really cool. That's really tough. But no, no, it's a misrepresentation of the past. And when it comes to the Viking Age, I'm passionate about the Viking Age. And I passionately hate when people strengthen these negative myths about the Viking culture, or I should say Norse culture, and the Viking Age. I hate it. I hate it. So, should museums partake in things like that? I think no. But I do see the problem. They are not given enough funding from the state, so they have to bring in money. And of course, Midgardsblot is a very successful festival. You have people coming from all the world, especially the USA, and they come here to be Vikings and get drunk and jump up and down and smear themselves in horse blood. And they go home and they talk about that, and everyone thinks that, oh, that was what the Vikings were about. But no. So yeah, I see that, and I was at Birka in Sweden now, and they also have a festival. It's a tattoo festival. Uh, Tattooing, I believe it's being done in the old-fashioned Pacific style way, not the machines, but the I think they call it hand poking. And they tattoo each other with what they believe is like Norse symbols. So you will see like the Vegviser, which again, has nothing to do with the Viking Age. It's a later medieval symbol that you would find on Iceland, and probably some symbols and runes and stuff like that you would obviously find during the Viking Age, but also they have. I saw some of the patterns that kind of looked Bronze Age to me. But here's the thing: why the hell would you host a tattoo festival at a Viking museum? Why? Why don't you also host a festival about trains or um, sugary sodas or cars or whatever? Because tattoos has nothing to do with the Viking Age. I know it's very popular to believe that, but no, there is no connection there. It was there is nothing to there is no evidence, or even there is nothing that connects tattoos to the Viking Age. And now people will be writing, and they will be writing in the comments after this live stream. Oh, you have Ibn Fadlan, and Ibn Fadlan said that they were tattooed. No, first of all, he didn't say that. And he was not talking about the Norse, probably some that you would call rus. And it could have been their clothes, could have been their skin, we don't know. But he also said a lot of other things that were obviously something that he just made up. He just made it up. So this goes against what we know. So, this is not about that. This live stream is not about that. But it is a popular thing in today's modern culture. So they host a festival about that. But again, it's a misrepresentation of the past. So I think that we shouldn't do that. Museums should not do that. Now, there are many other things that they could do that is actually connected to the past now that we are talking about the Viking Age. You know, um, let me just off the top of my head think about something that they could host that is historically correct. A wine festival, like fine wines. We know that the Norse, they imported wine. That's one example. Um, and let's see, archery, traditional archery. It's quite a big thing actually in Europe. Traditional archery. Could they host the European Championship in traditional archery? Maybe a mead festival. Yeah, mead has gotten a stress test. Thank you for mentioning that. Of course, yeah. Um, I mean, mead has become quite big. I believe it's quite a big thing in the USA now. What else? Wrestling, wrestling, uh, wrestling, martial arts, something like that. There's a lot of examples that lots of things you could do. So, but I'm not the one to decide here. But I do get a feeling that we, not us, but people, they do this mistake over and over again. They attach our culture to the past. So they should maybe try not to do that while still bringing in money. Of course, this could be solved by giving more money to the museums. Now, I will say about Birka, what a fantastic place, such wonderful people working there. I had such an awesome time there. So it's absolutely this site is being well taken care of by the people who are working there. So yeah, but I do have a problem with the festival across the fjord here that's going on now. I do have a problem with that, but because it's off-putting to many people. It's off-putting to me. Now, I promised to talk a little bit about Christianity. You know what would be historically correct to host at a I don't know if this would be commercially sound, but a festival that could be hosted at a Viking site, and this would provoke a lot of people, even me, but I would have to admit that this is actually historically correct. Early Christianity, that's quite academic, I get it. So, but yeah, a series of lectures about early Christianity, how it changed society, how it brutalized society in Scandinavia, because that's part of the Viking Age too, But of course, you couldn't. I think maybe that would be difficult because it would degenerate into a festival where you have a lot of preachers talking about how awesome Christianity was back then and all of that, and yeah, so that would be difficult. Maybe it's more an academic thing, and maybe some people would have a hard time being objective about it, yeah. So just my opinion here, and they could of course host a literature festival. I would come if they asked me, you know. But yeah, stress test is asking. I'm very curious where people got the idea that they were smearing blood on themselves. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a modern perception. Although I will say that the blood being such a significant thing during the blot. I mean, blot means blood. Um, I would guess that that would be the vulva. She would probably, if anyone did that, that would be her, to better connect with the offering or something like that. Um, but this thing where they just have massive amounts of horse blood, and they just smear themselves with that. I find it disgusting, and I find it also disrespectful. Now there are horses on the field behind me here, and I do not see horses as food. But yes, some people eat horse meat. But and I was given horse meat, horse sausage when I was a kid. It was quite normal back then. I didn't even know that it was horse meat. But I don't like it. I don't like it. Um, but it's like they did. The horse was the typical the meat for the bloat back then. But we don't have to copy bad things from the past. We shouldn't. Um, Terry says my Google says Vikings did rub blood on them. Yeah, Google should not be trusted. Is that the Google AI or just the Google? None of them should be trusted. And we have to understand that there are things that we do not know, because we can't prove it. And that's one of those examples. I am seeing, I'm not saying that you are guilty there, but Terry, but I'm seeing that I've had a few examples where people try to correct me, saying that Google's AI is telling me that you're wrong. Google's AI is telling this and that. And I mean, don't do that. I think that's like, I honestly don't know what to tell you if you're using AI to, or period, if you're using AI. I've talked about that before. I don't have the energy this morning to get into that again. But as GB says here, use your brains. I mean, yes. How would you prove that? You can't see that in the excavated, the things that have been excavated. You can't see it. So do you have written sources that tell you that? Do you? You know, I don't think you do that. I don't think you have that. So you have to go beyond Google, and you should not trust AI at all. There are things called books, and they should be read. It takes time, but it's worth it. Yeah, I really want to talk about AI now, but I'm not going to do that this morning. Let's see here. Cherokee Twilight says, education is entertainment for me, especially history. Let's see here. Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of people like the Midgardsblot. I'm sure it's nice. I've been there only once during daytime, and people were just sleeping then. But I'm not a fan. I think it's become something that, yeah, I've already said it. So my general thing here about what I wanted to get into and what I wanted to talk about here in this live stream is, it's not a popular thing to say. I think honestly that if a museum is tempted to misrepresent the past, if they're tempted to do that just to make money, they should not do it. Home Planet, Google AI gives its source. You can find the material they used. It is footnoted for social media. The important thing is that it is fast. Yeah, so the problem with that is that if you use Google AI and they give you the source material, you do realize that that's a horrible way to do research, because I can find a book that tells me, or an article that tells me pretty much anything. What you have to do is to question what you read and then go to other sources, and see if there are conflicting evidence. I get it. You can't do that during a chat. But but you really have to take your, what's the word? People say do your own research. Yeah, well, do your own research then. But if you're using AI, you're not doing your own research. No. So, okay. Stress test says, when it comes to Viking history, I trust what a living Viking has to say about it. Well, thank you. But don't trust what I'm saying. Go and read some books, Avaldsnes, that's another Viking museum. I have a video from Avaldsnes. One of the videos that it's old now, so YouTube has buried it, but you can find it on my main channel. Yeah, that's a wonderful place. I think that it could be done differently, and still they could still bring in money. And I find that it's problematic to me that the past is being changed using what we want, or what some people want to be true. Another example is, of course, how liberated the women were. and you have a lot of people. I would say the majority. My guess is that the majority of people think that the Viking women, were liberated. And it's like you can only believe that if you're disconnected from reality. And I made a video about that on the main channel. You know, um, the men were not liberated either. Of course, when you live in a society and you forget, like ours, and you take things for granted, right? I'll be brutally honest with you here, okay? Back then, about one third of the population in Norway, that around 1,000, about one third of the population were slaves. Slaves, yeah. Very, very few people had certainty that they would have food in the spring after the winter. It was a hard life. And you were dependent on the people around you. And it's like you wouldn't be able to leave just like that, oh, I'm a strong, independent woman. I will leave you, you worthless husband. Yeah, where do you go? Where do you go? Well, you could go back to your father's house, or maybe some other relatives. That's all. What else could you do? Nothing. Or you could go and die in the woods. And also, they did not have birth control back then, so they would be pregnant from the age of 15, 16, and then many, many more times until they got, well, most of their life, actually. So it was only people who, probably only people who women in the higher ranks of society that had some degree of freedom. But then again, if you were among those people in the higher ranks of society and you were a woman, you were also goods to be traded with. And marriage was used to bind alliances. So again, I see these young women on social media. They dress up in their nice, clean, white dresses, and they walk slowly through the woods holding a giant fucking horn with a drinking horn with runes on it. And yeah. Uh, that's fine. It's fantasy, and that's fine, but it has nothing to do with reality. Nothing. That was not life. That's not life. It just isn't. It's not real life. But nobody wants to listen to some grumpy old guy sitting there in his room, like being grumpy about these people. Um, but I do think that if you just make social media content, okay, maybe it doesn't matter. It's forgotten the day after you do it. But if you write novels, historical novels, like I do, you need to be real about the past. So Mm, Stealth mode says really and bloody, dirty and bloody and hard. Yes. Um, yeah, Sturla, yes. Well, I don't know him that well, but yeah, he's in opposition to mainstream anthropology and historians, I believe. Um, Also, Sturla, his opinions should be taken with a grain of salt. Absolutely. And he would agree on that, I believe. Um, Mike is asking if someone wanted to adapt your novels into a film series, what would be your requirements for such a production? I need it to be done in English. They need to speak English. So that's a requirement. So that's why I've said no to three, no, four offers. The fourth one was not really an offer. It was some guy who acted as an agent for, can't remember which country, some Middle Eastern Muslim country, and they wanted to use my books to make a TV series that would represent the Middle East, Eastern Arab culture in a more positive way. Why the hell are they? Why the hell are they? They did not read my books, I believe. Uh, it was a no, no. So yeah. Oh yeah, the the Saudis and people down there, they are using Western culture to further their cause, to make them appear more positive than what they really are. Um, they do that all the time. Um, Home Planet. Would you want a Hollywood film? Do you have dream stars or a director? There are some actors. I'm not up to date on the actors now, but yeah, Hollywood. No, no, no. I don't like anything that comes out of Hollywood. Um, and it's like Netflix. No, it's no. If so, I would have to have in my contract that I maintain control. Otherwise, you end up with like crap like that. Vikings Valhalla, where Håkon Jarl, Håkon Earl, he is portrayed as a black woman. What the hell, you know? So you have to be careful with these people because they have an agenda. Um, and they could ruin your reputation because your name gets attached to the TV series. Uh, so I don't know these companies, and I think that you have the anti-woke production companies in the USA, but they're all fucking Christian fundamentalists, so that's a big no there. Um, so no, it's like this Mel Gibson guy, and they're all, come on, you can't have people like that involved. It just wouldn't. It would end in tragedy. Um, thank you, Tron. Yeah, so yeah, I agree. It's like you have to adapt for a different medium, like TV series or film, but you have to do that without changing the spirit, if you will, of the book series. And if you go in there with a certain agenda, then it will be horrible. So no. Um, yeah. Homeplanet. No, I don't think Mel Gibson is cool. He's saying some things that it's like you don't believe dinosaurs existed and stuff like that. He's gotten a little bit crazy, I would say. Um, yeah, yeah, a wild man, yeah, but also very, very, very fucking stupid, and we can't have stupid people involved. So, if I would want to act in the movie, um, I I'm not an actor, so yeah. Um, but it would be cool to be in the movie. Well, they call it like a cameo, I think, uh, a minor part. That would be cool. But not, I don't think I should play a character that requires you to have acting skills. I think a proper trained actor should do that. Um, so GB says, "Be nice. We're all pretty stupid in reality." No, no, I won't be nice, and we're not all pretty stupid in reality. And I think that the difference is that some people, they just stop thinking and they arrive at conclusions based on almost nothing, or they base their conclusions on their feelings. And if you say that dinosaurs did not exist, then that comes from your need to have your feelings that are connected to fundamentalist Christianity confirmed. So you can't really. So you can actually say that someone who says that is stupid, while someone who is interested in finding information and studying, reading, is not stupid, you know. And I think the big difference between a stupid person and a intelligent person is that the intelligent person is aware that there are so many things that he or she does not know, while the stupid person arrives at conclusions very, very fast. And those conclusions are usually wrong. Um, so, okay, I'm ending the live stream now. Thank you for watching and joining the chat. I'm not expecting this live stream to get many views. Most people don't care about these topics, but that's just how it is. Okay. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.